This is an overview of our plan for today. We're going to start talking about what a theory of change is, kind of the core of a theory of change and practice by each developing a one-sentence theory of change to describe the work that your organization does. We're going to showcase some tools in our Impact at Scale toolkit, some templates and guidance that can set you up to create your own strong MEL foundation. We have some partners from LRDP who are going to talk about their own experience developing a theory of change and MEL framework. We will also have some time for questions and answers, as well as a breakout time for you to reflect on your own experiences developing and implementing MEL systems. Before we go any further, love to just check in and let us know, how do you feel about MEL in your organization? And here we have a sheep scale. So you can see these are labeled with the numbers 1 through 9. So just take a look at those pictures, see what you see the sheep doing, and let us know, how do you feel about MEL within your organization? You can share out loud if you're comfortable, or you can just put your number in the chat. We've got a 9, so that looks like someone who is excited and really leaping into the MEL journey. Someone else wants to reach 9, Vidya saying currently at 5. Also great. Also see 6, so that sheep looks quite content about her MEL journey. Great. Thank you so much for sharing all those. Feel free to keep putting those in the chat. Next, we're going to check in with a couple of questions using Mentimeter. If this is something that you have used before, great. If not, we'll go through it together. So for this, you're going to need to, you'll just need to open this link in a new browser, or sorry, in a new window. So I'll share it in the chat here, so you can just click on the link from the chat, or I'll share my screen again so that you can see, you can scan the QR code if that is easier. Once you have it pulled up, if you can just give a quick thumbs up in Zoom, we can see when, either physically or using the Zoom feature for thumbs up. Just checking in really quick, has everyone been able to access it? Either a physical thumbs up or a Zoom thumbs up? Okay, great. So our first question is, what are 3 words that you associate with monitoring, evaluation, and learning? So we can already see some responses, some common responses: outcomes, data, and impact, as well as several others. That it's an ongoing process, it's something that helps you make decisions, can give you clarity about your solution, and understand the impact that you're ultimately having on the people with whom you're working. Great. Then we'll move on to the next question. So in your organization, which do you think is more difficult, collecting high quality data or making sense of the data that you're collecting? So we started off even, but now it's looking like collecting high quality data is something that a lot of people are saying is more difficult than making sense of that data. Great. Looks like those are all of our responses. On that note, does anyone want to share why they chose one of those, either collecting data or making sense of the data? Any reflections or explanations? All right, then we will go ahead um, on to the next part of our session today. And I'll pass it over to my colleague, Ekaterina, to take us through what monitoring, evaluation, and learning are.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Katrina Cooper. I'm Senior Impact Manager here at GSF, and I would love to share our perspective and the tools we're using for establishing strong MEL systems in organizations and supporting our organizations who we work with. So before that, anybody who has academic background, I would love to agree on definitions, and I would love to share with you what do we actually mean by monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And you probably heard those abbreviations many times. You use them. You may have it even in your job title, but sometimes, or more often than not, organizations focusing only on the monitoring and evaluation, and learning is nice to have, but learning is really very instrumental part of it. Okay, so let's drill down into each definition. So monitoring. The monitoring is an opportunity for us to keep track and ensuring that we are following the trajectory we want to follow, and our intervention, our program, our solution achieving what it hoped to achieve, how and why. Then evaluation is looking how our solution, intervention, or program achieving certain milestones, and how does it achieve desired change, and how does our users, learners, teachers getting better in the or getting better in the space of where we're solving the problems. And of course, learning. Why learning is so important is not just because it's important to know that we are moving on on the right track, and we're achieving the milestones and arriving in destinations we hope to achieve and hope to arrive at. The learning is so important because if we're not on the right track, or if we are on the right track, but how do we get there? How do we get there? How can we get there faster, and so on? So we can get so much information from learning, from the data we're receiving, from the insights, and implementing that knowledge into the program development, into the assessment structures, into the data collections, and so on, and even the intervention as a whole or on organizational level. So understanding our data and learning from that and improving our solutions to make it even better for our learners, users, or teachers is pretty much critical. Next. So why does MEL important? So what does it actually do? I'm sure you're all aware of all those things, but I always think that it's worth reflecting when we talk about the MEL systems, that reflecting and almost using that as a checklist. Does our MEL systems do all those things? Specifically, does it help us to understand whether our solution or intervention work, and how does it do it? Can we improve our solutions using different types of data, not only the regular quantitative data, but also can we get more rich background information? Can we do we spend our resources accordingly and meaningfully, or our resources being wasted? And when I'm talking about resources, I don't mean only financial resources, I'm talking about human resources, I'm talking about time and so on. Can we work with partners meaningfully? Can we present our findings, our data in a meaningful way in order to scale our impact? Or even can we just be accountable and credible to the stakeholders, for example, to our teachers and learners? Can we gather more information, and is there space for more information, more insights, and new ideas from the data we are currently collecting in order to create updating our interventions, create new interventions, develop new routes to market, or new ways to work with different types of stakeholders? And of course, finally, last but not least, also understanding how our intervention works and what information do we need to know, to gather and to know about the intervention, and which one is the most meaningful for us in order to get a comprehensive picture about our solution. And the way we do that is creating a complex MEL systems. But before we go into the complex MEL systems and address all those potential needs that MEL can facilitate and help you with, we need to think about our interventions as a simple way of presenting it. How do we communicate it to the world? How do we underpin it or in one sentence? How do we actually express everything we do in a simple way, that in order to align not only within our organization, not only with our stakeholders or our funders, but also align everything we do from the intervention to the results within our organization. And for that, the one way to do that may be creating a one sentence theory of change. I'm sure you all had an experience with creating different theory of changes, and they probably look somewhat different. And probably every initiative, every accelerator or incubator starts with it. Okay, let's create a theory of change. So yet another way of think about your intervention is creating one sentence theory of change to align your thinking and to align your processes within our organization. So how do we do that? We basically want to answer three questions: why, how, and what. Why does our intervention or our solution exist? What problem we're trying to solve, and what needs or gaps we're trying to address. What help us to understand what ultimate change, what's the North Star we're trying to reach with our program or intervention. And of course, how is about how do we solve that why, how do we solve that problem, what our solution is all about, and do we have sufficient evidence or sufficient knowledge that exactly this intervention, this solution, this program will help you to achieve the ultimate change, the North Star, or that great impact for your learners or users. Okay, let's drill it down a little bit. So why? Why does our intervention exist? How can we formulate it? Basically, we can say something like, well, because many children between age of 6 to 10 in rural Malawi finish primary school with limited literacy and numeracy skills. Or another example, it might be that systemic resource gaps in peri-urban areas of Kenya hinder adequate teacher deployment and training. So meaning that there are particular problems for specific types of population or specific types of people that we are trying to address. And these specific people are experiencing particular issues. We can drill it down to a very, very particular group in a very particular area and with a very particular problem that they experience. And then, of course, we are offering the solution. So for children of age to 10 in rural Malawi, we can provide targeted teacher training and culturally responsive curricula in order to address the gap in their foundation literacy and numeracy. For Kenyan areas to support teachers and their training, we can propose the community-based instructional support, not only to teachers, but also support parents in order to address the gap. And finally, what? So what are we trying to do? Okay, we had a problems. We defined that we know the age of children. We know area of Malawi. We know that they're struggling with FLN. We're proposing the teacher training and the curricula that fits into their cultural context. So and that is being done so young learners develop strong FLN skills and also achieve lifelong academic success. So that's the big goal we're trying to achieve. So we can package our intervention in one foundational sentence. We're very clearly stating the problem. Who is it for? How do we resolve, how do we solve that problem, or what our intervention is about, and of course, what's the ultimate change we're hoping to achieve. And now I would love you to give it a go and try to narrow down your big, complex, maybe very multifaceted intervention into one sentence. What, in essence, are you trying to achieve? Who for? What problems you're trying to solve? How do you do that? And what is the big ultimate change you're hoping to achieve? We'll give you a few minutes. If you want to shout out or raise your hand if you have any questions or put it down in chat, please feel free to do so. So within the impacted scale toolkit, we have a number of tools that we believe are instrumental for setting up strong MEL systems. And of course, there is no MEL system without theory of change. Theory of change is beginning of everything. It's the foundational tool. It's a strategic tool. It's a dynamic tool that you create and you update every so often as your intervention shapes and changes and develops. And you can access the template that we are using widely, and as well as the guidance video and the guided document at our website at Global Schools Forum at the Impact Scale Labs toolkit. And our theory of change template looks like this. And it's probably quite familiar to what you might be using or have seen before or have used before. In essence, it's covering the following structure. It's starting with a problem, meaning why. That's your why from your one sentence, your problem. Then followed by the key resources and activities where you're drilling down into what make your intervention special, unique, and stand alone, but also what activities are critical and instrumental that your participants or your recipients, teachers and learners need to do in order to achieve the change you hope for them to achieve. Mechanism of change for change, they follows each part of the theory of change, and they basically explains what's so foundational, what's so important in those pieces of the theory of change that able to facilitate the change you hope to achieve and lead to the impact that you're aiming for. The outputs is the next big part of the theory of change, is indication of whether your activities has happened the way you anticipate them to happen. They are very much indicative whether your participants completed the activities, whether the participants completed them the way you wanted them, whether the lessons plans were created or students completed the tasks, and so on and so forth. The outcomes, however, indicate the change. So in the outcomes, you will indicate how things are improving, increasing, decreasing, and so on. So how are they changing specifically in addressing the problem you hope to address? The goals indicates the direction of that change on the bigger scale. And of course, the long-term goals, our impact is what of your one sentence theory of change and what you're trying to achieve. What is the North Star? So that's your impact, the impact you're hoping to achieve. You can think about the accountability line as well. So after the outcomes, you can see the dashed line. It's an accountability line, and the accountability line indicates that everything up to that point is very easily measurable and tangible and attributable to the intervention you offering to the world and to the activities your participants or learners or users are participating or completing. And past the point of accountability point, the direct indication is way more difficult to attribute specifically or just to your program. It is possible to achieve, but it will be more difficult. And of course, when you think about theory of change as a whole, you also can think about the enabling or derailing factors that can either support and facilitate and nurture your intervention or jeopardize and put it under the risky conditions. And as a basic example, your theory of change will go in the logical lines, in the logical horizontal orders. So for instance, it may look something like that. In one sentence theory of change, we use the example of the problem statement related to the Kenyan communities where children lacking the access to quality play-based learning opportunities and leading to inadequate school readiness and poor foundational skills. So that's the problem. What would be the activity? One of the activities may be to conduct workshops for ECD teachers and on play-based learning on place-based learning methods. And the output of that would be that teachers has developed learning plans and lesson plans using the play-based methods. And what we're hoping that will change is teachers will improve their competency in delivering play-based learning. The bigger change would be that schools' readiness will improve for the school-age children of 4 to 5 years old in public ECD centers. And the bigger, broader systemic impact would be that strong early foundations will lead to school completion and equitable learning outcomes, meaning that if on systemic level that there is a big change, if this intervention worked correctly and all those changes will happen, then we will achieve broader impact for the equitable learning outcomes for children and lifelong, in some cases, lifelong learning outcomes. Okay, so that was the foundations. That's the theory of change. You all have it. Working with your theory of change is really critical because more detail, more up to date, clearer it is and simpler it is. So you can follow those logical, coherent structures. That means that you will have a very, very good understanding what goes into your intervention, what you expect to see as a result of it, and what change you can anticipate. Once you have that in place, you are able to transfer and create stronger MEL systems. And the next step for that will be a development or improving, if you already have one, of MEL framework. Why do I say improving? Because it's never-ending process. It's always iterative, always continuous. And even if you believe that your systems are in place, it's really important to review them every so often because you will notice how much more you know about your intervention, about the context, about your teachers or about your learners, and about the environment around them. Policy changes, environment systems are changes, and all that may have an impact on even established and strong interventions that has been implemented for years and years and years. So when you're creating a MEL framework, the tools are in the same place on our Global Schools Forum Impact at Scale Toolkit website. So you would be able to download, if you wish, the tool itself, as well as access the guidance video and the guidance document. And we start with the monitoring universe. Monitoring universe is a place for us to move the elements of theory of change and drill down onto the assumptions we have about theory of change. We touched upon mechanism for change very briefly. You can drill down into the assumptions. Our life, our world, our perception of our own existence is consist of the assumptions. We all assume things about everything. And same we do about our interventions. So understanding our assumptions about our activities, outputs, outcomes, and of course our impact is really critical. If we understand our assumptions very well, and we have lots of assumptions, we can challenge them more. And every assumption, challenging our assumptions will help you to create monitoring questions. Um, and there is a reason why we want to answer some certain questions. Why do we want to know more about context where we're implementing interventions? Why we want to know about fidelity of intervention? Why do we want to know more about how and why this intervention being used in a certain places or in certain groups, between different types of groups of users or learners, and so on and so forth. There may be myriad of different assumptions you have. And then, of course, you may have a question: how do we select one? How do we select right questions for us? How do we prioritize? And you follow this specific process about prioritization. You make a decision whether these questions is, or answering those questions or challenging those assumptions is a strategic priority for you, whether it's reporting requirement. So your funders or stakeholders actually may want to know more about how the intervention is going. Is it possible to answer the question you have? And is it really practical to answer that question? If you have yeses, then that's a good time to move to the next stage. And the next page of the MEL framework is a monitoring plan. So first part of that document is pretty much replication of the monitoring universe, or i.e. those parts which was yes, 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 and prioritized to move into the monitoring plan. And then, of course, you start to think about how can you answer that question? What would be a target or success criteria? What the good looks like? Where you can find the information to answer that question? And what's the timelines do you have? And who's responsible to collect that data? But not only that, but also feedback the data back to the organization, share it with different teams, and make a decision what's next, whether we just collect more data or we make iterations and on the basis of the current learnings. So that's in essence what MEL framework may look like. It's foundations of theory of change, assumptions related to theory of change, turned into the questions about your parts of the intervention, and of course, how to answer those questions, data sources, success criteria, and the times associated with that. Sounds simple. It is not that simple in the real life, but there is some guidance on the website, and that can support you in developing or enhancing or updating your MEL systems. So what it could look like, very simply, I'll go through one of the examples. If you have an activity to conduct workshops for teachers on play-based learning as a part of theory of change, that's how one grows into another. Then we can have a question about how many workshops were delivered that included all 5 modules. Imagine that intervention is a complex intervention and has multiple facets and have multiple modules. So maybe in some cases it's only 1 module has been delivered, in another it's all 5. So we need to know how many of those workshops were complete as opposed to fraction. And the indicator might be that the number of workshops delivered that included all 5 modules. And the way to do that, we can do the cluster observations, or we can do the surveys, or we can do even interviews. And that would be very meaningful for us to understand whether that's actually feasible to deliver that many modules, and whether there is a buy-in from teachers. If not, we potentially have a problem with the whole intervention. And we're not talking about the change just yet. We're just at the stage where we're trying to understand things about our intervention, what actually works. So that's a very brief example. Now let's go into practice. I pass it back to Sarah, who will talk a little bit more about the next part of our session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we are going to shift gears a little bit to learn from Peter and Kalstom from Lake Region Development Program, who are participants in our Impact at Scale Lab, focusing on early childhood development in Kenya. And they're going to share a little bit about their experience developing a theory of change and a MEL framework as they participated in the lab. So let me just spotlight our videos. Great. And let me first just pass it over to Peter and Kalstom. If you could introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about LRDP's work.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you, Katrina. I'm Peter Shikuku, and I'm the CEO of Lake Region Development Program. Carlstrom, you want to introduce yourself? Then I can share.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. My name I am Carlstom Okothodondi. I work for Lake Region Development Program as a programs officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlstom. I'll just give a brief about Lake Region Development Program. We are a child-focused organization, NGO, working in western part of Kenya in 3 counties of Homa Bay, Migori, and Kisii. And we work with closely with the government, with the county governments of Homa Bay, Migori, and Kisii. We also work with institutions of higher learning, that is universities, and we work with Rongo University and Kisii University. We focus majorly, we are working in rural areas, in rural communities, and we focus majorly on children. For these interventions, we are one of the participants in the Impact at Scale Labs. And we had initially, in our thinking, did activities on caregiving for primary caregivers. So that was our initial thought as we are coming into Impact at Scale Labs. But we realized we will not have a greater impact doing that. So then we shifted gear and changed to conducting caregiving and business skills to secondary caregivers who are doing home-based and center-based.
Thanks so much for the introduction. Our first question about the process of developing this MEL Foundation is, when you started developing your theory of change, who was involved in it and what roles did different people on your team play?
When we started the process of developing the theory of change and the MEL framework, at the initial stage, we engaged all the staff in Lake Region Development Program. And as an organization, apart from this intervention, apart from this solution which we are doing, our staff are also engaged in doing other activities that they do. So because we are in 3 counties and 5 different sub-counties, our staff are spread across those areas. So initially, our thinking was to have everybody participate in the development of the MEL framework and the TOC, right from start to the end. But that did not seem to work, because at one time, you may find 1 or 2 staff have skipped one session. And when you get to the 3rd or the 4th session, our colleagues would be asking some of the issues that we had discussed in the previous session. So what we did therefore was to pick a team of 4 staff, Carlstrom, our M&D, one of our program officer, and myself. So we were the people to join all the sessions, be in all the meetings, spearhead and lead the discussions, but at the same time fall back to all the staff, either through virtual meetings or through live documents, so that they can give us the feedback to it. And where there was need, would call for a staff meeting and just discuss. So we noted that with that approach, we started moving. Otherwise, we were moving into circles, mark timing, getting back, and so forth. And the other thing we realized is when we have such a bigger team, the ideas are many, and agreeing on what we need to move on was becoming a challenge. So that's the strategy and that's the approach that we used for us to move and complete that task.
Yeah, thanks for sharing about how you navigated that tension between making sure that different viewpoints were presented and shared, as well as making sure that you were able to move forward as a team. Were there any other parts of developing a theory of change that were challenging for you, and how did you work through those?
Yeah, thank you very much. Allow me to pick it, then Peter will pick it from there. And just pick it from the point that Ekaterina was talking about, that really having a proper linkage from the problem statement, activities, output, outcomes, and eventually to the goal, so that they're aligned so well. And this became a little bit challenging, like Peter has also indicated, that you'd have varied ideas from all the stuff that we had on board. And so for quite some time, we're not able to be able to agree on those points and really have proper alignment and linkages and flows of those activities and in the entire pathway leading us to the goal. That was a very interesting process. But eventually, when we are able to have a leaner team, we're able to have a concerted effort and look through them. Then we were able to develop a path that was flowing from the problem statement and eventually having activities, inputs, and outcomes that outputs and outcomes that will lead us to the desired goal. Yeah.
Thanks so much. The next question is also about the theory of change. When you were putting together this theory of change, did you find that there were any that there was any information that you didn't have about your context or the people you were working with? And if so, how did you go about finding that information to fill it in for your theory of change?
Yeah, we did realize that we did have quite a number of information as we are working on this. And we deliberately picked the issues that we realized we did not have and did quite a lot of desk review, did quite a lot of reading, a lot of research, checking out within the CIDPs, the County Integrated Development Plans, reading out information that was available. So what we did is for us to engage different staff at different level, we would pick different components of the information which we are missing and assign different staff. So would assign Carlstrom to go and look at a component, maybe if we are missing a component on play, the other person will look at a component on nutrition or any other different component that we felt we did not have sufficient information. So once that's done, then we converge. People share what they have researched, what they have found out. We discuss, and if we are in agreement, then that is what we use.
Thanks so much. Moving on to from your theory of change to the MEL framework that you built based on that theory of change, can you tell us a little bit about what it's been like implementing your monitoring plan? So once you chose all of those indicators and that would help you answer the monitoring questions, what has it been like implementing that?
Alston, you want to go?
Okay, I think I'm having a problem with the bandwidth here, but it's okay. I think it's back to stability. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey in the process of implementation, following on the theory of change, and now using the MEL framework to really be able to understand the processes we're going through. One key bit is really been on having an opportunity to look at different factors that are going to enable us to really meet the target, or really not so. So the MEL framework and the universe has been very instrumental in the process, and we are trying to develop, understand in the learning process, what are these factors and indicators that would make us not to achieve or realize the intended goal of the project, as we are almost coming to its end.
And just to add to what Carlston is saying is, as we are working, we find what are the problems, because we were targeting home-based and center-based caregivers, those at home and those even at the center. And initially, there are those that were coming up, and there was a group that was not coming out, not because they were not doing it, but because they feared that they are not complying. They had not been registered. And by coming out, maybe they thought the government would come for them and start asking for the different compliance issues. So what we did is during the training, when we were having the training for the mentors, we brought in the government to share with them on what is expected and to assure them that they are there to support and not to harass any of them. So we realized that with that, then people started coming out. Yeah, I also have this, I also have this. So then based on the persona which we had developed, we would then be able to comfortably move and comfortably reach the numbers that we reached.
Thanks so much. And then the last question is moving from monitoring and evaluation into learning. Can you tell us about anything that you have learned and changed about your program based on the data that you collected while monitoring?
One of the things that we changed is we looked at the curriculum and the duration that it takes. Initially, we were taking 10 months to conduct all the sessions, and we realized that there was fatigue, and people were at some point either getting disinterested, or at some point people were getting fatigued. And because we are targeting a group that are running daycares and home-based, and we wanted them to do that as a business, we were to take that into consideration. So we combined sessions and were able to conduct the sessions within a period of 5 months. The other thing that we agreed with the participants is for them to decide on the time for the sessions. So either those that were comfortable, the sessions happening in the morning, would do the sessions in the morning, those comfortable in the evenings, in the afternoons. So we agreed with them what times were comfortable with them. And then we also agreed with them on the venue, and quite a number of the home-based and the center-based volunteered their spaces as venues for the training. So we did that and realized that was working well. Of course, besides having translated our curriculum into local language, that it was being administered in a local language, in a language that they all understand.
Yeah, and just to agree with what we are saying, what has really worked for us so well in this is the fact that we are a community-based organization. And one key thing that we are community-led organization, activities that we do are informed by the needs that we have in the community. And the aspect that Peter is saying, that of community engagement and participation in really informing how we are doing this program, has really contributed a big way to the successes that we can count on so far.
Thank you so much for sharing about your experiences with MEL, as well as how that has fed into the learnings and new iterations of your program. We can take a few minutes now. If there are any questions for Peter or Kalstom, I will unspotlight us so we can all see each other again. And so if you have any questions now for Peter or Kalstom, please feel free to share them in the chat, or just unmute yourself and feel free to ask. If there aren't any questions now, that's also great. We are going to break up into some small groups. So,
Question.
Oh, yeah, please go ahead.
My name is Plato Patmo, and I'm based in the US, but I work in Liberia. I guess my question will be, what are some of the challenges that newly formed organizations usually often are faced with when trying to implement some of these systems? I do know that in countries like Liberia and countries like Sierra Leone as well, there are some challenges with regards to government relationships and all of those things. I just want to hear if it's of the challenges that we should expect as we are now just trying to organize some new ECD programs in Liberia.
Do we wait for all the questions, or we can respond to them as they come?
Maybe as they come. If you have any experiences related to that question.
Probably the countries in Africa are not much different. The context and the challenges may be the same. Like one thing that we realize in terms of, because we work closely with the government, one area that was clearly missing was in terms of policies that guides on basically on child care and child welfare. So that then again, what we are able to do is to work together with these county governments, Migori, Homa Bay, to ensure that we have child policy in place that would closely guide on how these childcare facilities are run, and also touching on, because remember Peter mentioned about licensing of the ECD centers and childcare facility, which is basically a role of the county government. But there's always a challenge with the compliance because quite often it is seen by the service providers as punitive in nature because the relationship is not that good. But that's a thing, something that we are working on, so that we may have an harmonious working relationship between the service providers and the county government, so that they see each other as ones that complement the work that the other party does. Yes. Peter,
And yeah, thank you, Carlston. And maybe just to add to what Carlston has said, apart from policy, one, working and involving government at the initial stage is very key. And for us, first, even before we started the engagements and the involvement, we brought together key government departments and key stakeholders and shared with them what we are intending to do and how we intend to do that. So part of the people that were supporting us are part of low-level government officers that the government had shared with us or had given us as per what we requested them. One of the major issues we have seen as we implement is most of our community members are low income, have low income levels. And so in the interventions that you are doing, think around what economic empowerment initiatives that you can support them with, besides the knowledge that you're giving them, but also what are the economic interventions that you can align to that. The other one that we also noted, and it could be cultural, it could be cutting across, is the component of male involvement. Men are majorly decision makers in most of our communities, but sometimes they don't look at childcare, they don't look at ECD as a serious thing. And for those that are engaging, sometimes they are despised and looked down upon. So gradually, we may need to find a way of involving men by even using men who are empowered to speak about the involvement in ECD and in childcare. And if you did that, then gradually you'd be able to find somewhere to move.
Yes, Vidya, go ahead.
Um, Hi, thanks, Peter and Calston, for sharing your story. I think I resonate with a lot of the thoughts that you were sharing about the partnership with the government and the challenges that we sometimes face and how to go about it. I'm just curious to know, in your context, when you say you partner with the government, is it a sort of contract or an MOU that is signed with them on a like a particular time period, or like how does the partnership process happen? Is it something that is renewed on a yearly basis or once in 2 years? Is my first question. And second question is, now sometimes if in Indian context, a lot of times when an NGO partners with the government, it's these kind of contracts that are put in place for 2 years, 3 years at a time. In such situations, in the middle of that MOU period, there are new people who are appointed for that particular role. And then there is no alignment with that person, with the new person who has come in, right? And this can probably put a wrench in the MEL framework that you've put in, the processes that you've put in. So, what are some, if, one is, did you face something like this? And if yes, what are some things that you did to solve for it?
Thank you very much, Vidya, for those very, very good questions. First of all, as an organization, we sign an MOU and a memorandum of understanding with the county government. And that is an MOU that goes for 5 years. It can be renewed. And apart from the MOU, because in the MOU, we highlight the key sectors that we intervene and the kind of support that we expect the county governments also to give. But apart from that, apart from the overall MOU that we sign, we also have one-on-one engagements with the government officers at the lower level. The county MOUs for us is at the county level. For example, Migori is a county and Migori has several sub-counties where we work. So we have at the sub-county level, we have different engagements. If I need a particular item done, I just write to the sub-county officer and they are able to support. But for this particular project, as we discuss at the county level and even at the sub-county level, we have low-level government officers that we use as mentors. They are able to help us in supervision. So these low-level government officers are officers that are coming from the Children's Department, the Department of Health, the Department of Education, the Department of Social Services. The government officers at the sub-county level help us in identifying these officers. And what we facilitate the officers is just transport and lunch. So we don't like pay them salaries, or we don't like pay them anything other than the facilitation for travel and for the lunch. And then on the second question, which is having government officers that exit, that move, yes, it's true. At times we have government officers that move. But what we deliberately do is we work with, we strengthen multi-sectoral teams. So at the county, we have a multi-sectoral coordinating team. Even if a few of the members will exit, but the others that come in will be able to pick and learn from what the others do. And then you can also, after some time, plan for refresher or have regular stakeholder sessions just to update those ones that are coming in, the new ones. It has not happened that most of the multi-sectoral team are moving away. But at the sub-county level, if we have an officer that is exiting, for example, if it's a children's officer, then you'll have to take time to share and to have the officer well informed to help you in the program.
Yeah, and probably just to emphasize is that we talk of low-level government officers so that then we have them at ward level, so that even if they exit, they'll just be moving from a closer ward within the area that we are implementing the activity. So they are still useful in even in those new wards that they're taken to.
Got it. Thank you so much.
I see another question in the chat from Nazia. What has been your experience in terms of government uptake of the learning of your childcare model and replicating at policy level?
Maybe as Peter will add on this, I'd want to indicate that we've had very positive uptake and response as working together, and even plans of be able to replicate and have much of this model done in other sub-counties and even other geographies if we be having the resources to do that. Currently, like policy is something that takes place. But like I did mention is that we are working with them once we began by developing a child welfare policy that really addresses some of these issues in childcare. And so with that pace, we want to believe that much will be done at policy level so that we are sure that we'll be having something that cuts across all the counties that we're working in and even the sub-counties that we're working in based on the policies that shall be informed by the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlston. In one of the counties already a policy has been developed and launched. In another county, that is still work in progress, but we have been part of the team that has been participating in the development of that policy. And being part of the team, then it means that we also give our input and share on what we feel this should be the issues. But we have had discussions at county level, and we have had government wanting to replicate part of what we are doing, especially in market centers, for example. They're asking, currently we are having one that we are working in Rongo University. We have established a childcare at Rongo University, targeting majorly students who come with young children and they do not know where to place them when they are studying, when they are doing exams. So that initiative has really prompted the government to think around children that are in marketplaces and they are not able to get that particular support. So there have been those discussions, but we are still following up.
Yeah, V, dear, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have a couple more questions. So I'm just curious to know when y'all were developing the solutions for the problems that y'all had. And I know that from the previous sessions, we were also discussing that when you're creating your solutions created from scratch, when you're creating it, created at scale, like keeping scale in mind. Whereas sometimes I've seen another approach where they try it out in a model system, or like they pilot it in a smaller group of people and then they take it to scale. I wanted to know in your organization whether y'all piloted the problem, the solutions, the products that y'all have, and then scaled it, or from scratch. I remember you were saying that y'all invested the government officials from the beginning itself. So were they part of the solution, like coming up with the solution as well, or was it another alternative?
I tried, but I lost you at the end, but maybe let me try to respond. Yes, we did a pilot for this solution, and we piloted just in a small area with the government, with low-level government officers in one of the counties amongst the 3 counties that we are working in. And that is part of the learnings that we got that informed us to change, to adjust that particular program as we moved to the other counties where we are working. So like I said before, that what we do is we engage the government officers right from start, because apart from this solution, there are also other interventions which we are doing. So, but for this particular one, we have a meeting with the government officers and we share with them in detail about the approach that we want to take, what support we are expecting the government to do, and which departments of the government we are going to require their support. My colleague mentioned that we use low-level government officers. Low-level government officers here could be maybe a child protection volunteer who is directly under the children's department, but now we use that as a mentor. In the Department of Health, it could be a community health extension worker. So those particular staff, we give the government what we require. There's specific criteria that we need, the specific people that we need, and they help us choose and they help us pick. But yes, we did a baseline, and based on the baseline, we are moving, refining further our solution as we move. In the baseline that we did, we directly worked with the primary caregivers. We conducted the sessions with the primary caregivers, and we learned that that cannot really have a greater impact, because if a caregiver has a child who is below 3 years, and that caregiver is not planning to bring to the world another child, that ends there. But if we are training the secondary caregivers who continuously have children coming on board, then even if the children outgrow the 3 years, move to the other sections of the school, there are those ones that are coming in, and the caregiver still has the knowledge, still has the information to impart to that child.
Yeah, there is a question, Sarah. Sorry for that. There's a question from Jerome. Yes, I don't think there's an enabled materials. Whatever. Yeah, I want to believe we share that with my CEO here.
Sorry, I lost connection for a second. It looks like there's maybe one more question now in the chat about any experience working with government at the national level, or has your work mostly been at the county level so far?
Yeah, so far, thank you, Sarah, so far, and thank you, Nazia. So far, we have worked very much at the county level, but remember also children issues are a national issue. So we work with both the county governments and the national governments at the county level. So we work with them at the county level, both national and county government, but not national at the national level. Maybe if I'm understood.
Serafina, go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm sorry, I've also lost network for a minute. Thank you, Peter and the team for presentation. Thank you, Copper, for presentation also. My question is around currently, we are also planning to start a program for kids who are out of school. So we are trying to reintegrate them back to the schools, and we are trying to lay out with the existing ECD schools that are there. So basically, I wanted to know if Peter and the team have started to work around the sustainability process or sustainability model that they will be using in their program.
Also, you want to go first? Thank you, Sarafina.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarafina. Sustainability is an issue that we are very conscious about in our programming, and that informs why, number one, we work with both the county government and the national government at county level, so that because we know that every other program and activity towards benefiting the society is their sole responsibility. then the government should be able to continue with the work that we do. Number two, we also talked about our co-creation and engagement with the community members, so that then again, if we're able to build the capacity of the community, especially the caregivers, then we can be certain and sure that the work will continue. But more, again, specifically in terms of what we want trying to test is the social franchise model, so that then again, we should be able to have a standard and be able to develop a network of caregivers. Then within this network, then we are able to, one, strengthen the aspect of the financial literacy and how they are able to access finance from within themselves and even tap from other sources, and also be able to see how other partners can work together with them to support them through the network that we are testing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter and Kalstum, for sharing your experiences, and thank you everyone else for all of the really thoughtful questions. I've learned a lot and just so appreciate everyone's contributions today. Since we're getting close to the end of time, instead of going into breakout rooms, we'll just finish with a quick reflective activity, as well as that poll that I mentioned earlier, where we would love to learn about how today was for you and if there's anything we can change in future sessions to make them more helpful for you. So I've gone ahead and shared that link in the chat. So if you could just take, it'll just take about a minute to fill in that survey. So please go ahead and click on that link and let us know how today was for you. At the same time, let me share my screen one more time. We have a final question to reflect on. Love for you to think for just a minute about one action that you plan to take forward in building strong MEL systems within your own organization. So if you have any reflections on this, feel free to share them in the chat or just share them aloud. Otherwise, thank you again so much for being here today. If you haven't clicked on the link to the poll yet, please go ahead and do that to share your feedback. We have another session of this community of practice planned for the next one will be June 12th on data-driven testing and adaptation in early childhood development. So we hope to see you again there. We'll be building on what we've talked about today, creating a strong foundation to test specific elements of your solution or to learn more about your context to make adaptations to your program that are going to be able to help you serve the children you work with better. So we hope to see you on June 12th. Thank you so much for being here, and hope that you have a lovely rest of your day and going into the evening. Thanks again. See you next time.
Thank you very much, and have a wonderful time. Bye.